And good morning, 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 good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. And welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. I is he, your griot, here to tell you a story. And I haven't really felt the compunction to do a YouTube. I got like a zillion of them up there. And whether you can figure out how to look at every one, which you can, because people do. I mean, when I go to, I go onto YouTube and then it says your channel and I go there and it just kind of shows me the most popular ones. You can see at least 100 or so just looking at what YouTube gives you. Then when I'm looking at it, it says all of your video, and I hit that and boom, and then from the last one to the first one, it shows them all, right? And other people say, "Oh yeah, I can figure that out," and other people, "I don't know how to do that." So I don't know. I it's right there on my thing, so I can look at it. Same with all the stuff that I look at. It pretty much has the last few weeks or forever, right? So you can see what I look at, and you can look at my threads and all of that. So here we are, and this is a live chat. All these shows are live chats, and back in the day, you know, I used to get a lot of people and we would chat actually. And then they would start talking to each other and I would just tell stories. And that seemed to be a nice format. 'Cause no one ever put it, remember, put it in capitals, right? Now, thanks for everybody who was dropped stuff in my PayPal, which hasn't really, there's two people who are very religious and one drops about 20 bucks and the other about 10. So I know it's still alive. But back in the day, I used to get 100 or 200. Sometimes when somebody was, wow, would drop even bigger amounts, and that was fine. Now I have no idea how to, monetize this platform, right? And it is what it is. If it ever came to that, that'd be nice. If not, But if you want to put something on the old PayPal, remember that's the dude awake 42 at Gmail. Dude awake 42 at Gmail. Here it is, 2 minutes, 22 seconds. And you want to talk to me like mano y mano and not on the YouTube because I know some of you are shy. That's, the dude awake 42 at Gmail. You want a reading, show me your palm, from the tips of your fingers to about down here, both sides, and I can give you an interesting reading, right? And now, everything I do, I don't do to monetize. God, today I was reading the Bible in the today's Sunday, and I went to the three churches, and we were all talking about Luke, right? And Luke is the guy who talked about Jesus saying, "Hey, look at the birds, look at the bees. They're not worrying about, how am I going to pay my bills, right?" And when you are a slave to God, when you let God motivate and direct your life, you don't have to worry about anything, right? Everything will come to you. Now, my whole life, pretty much that was it. And I was not aware what was going on. I just kind of flowed through it, and that's what a lucky bastard is, somebody who just kind of flows through it and services God's will without even knowing, right? With not even like John the Baptist, a good example of a lucky bastard. And even Jesus Christ was a lucky bastard, up until he said, okay, here it is. I got 3 years to go on the clock. And but up until then, he was still Jesus. When he was 13 and he went with his family back to the place, and everyone left, and he was still at the temple talking to the rabbis, and they were like amazed. Here's this kid who knows more about it naturally, right? So anyway, when I go to the three churches, and I basically just go for fellowship, for Bible study, I go in there, and I've been doing it now almost 2 years, and everyone thought I was, who is this knucklehead? And the people who were like, ooh, really on top of what their church was doing on the spiritual motif said, well, this guy knows something. So they always kind of said, no, Al is interesting. And now Al is interesting. And I talk to everyone, right? And not just, I'm not just a teacher up there at the podium. I sit there until, now they get into the lesson for about 15, 20 minutes and they kind of get lost. And there's two other old guys who used to be like me, but they're like, their teeth are falling out. I mean, basically, I just ripped my teeth out of my head. I had no teeth whatsoever. The gums got pretty strong. I can't eat steak. I can't chew straight into a apple. Now, I can cut the apple up and boil it down and make it into like applesauce. Yum, yum, yum. And the same thing with steak. I can take that steak and chop it up and put it into a stew. I just made a stew from, and people bring me their leftovers, and they know that they're probably not going to eat the stuff out of the refrigerator. It'll go bad. They give it to me, and I add it to the other. They've all shared a meal on my deck, and they go, "Oh, wow, you cook amazing!" And all I do, I have just one big electric frying pan, and I just keep throwing stuff into it from what was yesterday, and that. I have no refrigeration, no anything of that nature. So, you know, I help the churches collect and distribute food to poor people because they're not good at that, right? And I take it out. I don't make them get on a line like that. The Catholic Church, like it's jail. And they're always like, "Hey, man, I've been coming here 3 years. You should know me by now." And about a year and a half after that, when the pandemic started, I started to give them, because they were really, really loving the ones who wanted to be the sheriff, would like, right? And I would just give them a hard time. I would pretend I was deaf and blind. I can't see that. Well, how can you drive a car? Well, I can see far away. I just can't see you. You're kind of invisible. You don't exist. I would do existential things like that. And some of the people in the Catholic Church really, really upset me, right? Thought I was like, whatever they thought. But the one, like the priest, he used to just sit over there and kind of chuckle. He said one time after they had a big woo ha 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 about whether I should get it. And he came and visited me and he said, no, this guy needs it more than anybody else. Half these people are selling to somebody else. He actually gives the food we give him, he gives it away to people even worse than him. So the Catholic Church has lightened up on me because the three head people are yeah, he's all right. The old biddies and the old, and see, you can be an old biddy and be a guy. You don't have to be a girl to be an old biddy. Anyway, so they've all accepted. This one guy who was like, he went nuts. I took him out to lunch one time, and we would talk on the Bible. He said, "Wow, you know the Bible?" I said, "Yeah, I can read in the Greek too." Anyway, I mean, I really can't anymore because I can hardly. And languages like Hebrew and Greek, if you don't use them, I mean, I can read them and get the general gist of things, but that's because I've read this stuff before. Anyway, so here it is Sunday, and see who's there. Oh, Martyred Artist, welcome. Yep. So, um, I'm seeing a lot. You see, so the homeless, the people who are addicted to things. That's not just in the big cities, And one of these churches said, "Well, we're out in the country, and we're Jesus. What we got the Christian bubble over us, and that can't." And then it hit them like a ton of bricks. As soon as they started talking like that, it hit them like a ton of bricks. And I said, "No, no, no. This is everywhere, and it is. It's all demographics, And so the folks who are really addicted to drugs and are basically homeless are people who have lived here for 20 generations, and the rich corporations came in and they didn't even know that they were back on the taxes. And all of a sudden, the sheriff comes and throws them off their farm that they've been there for, 120 years. And the corporation turns it into a golf course or an airport or a strip mall. And so, one of the corporations trying real hard to turn part of the big lake into little Las Vegas. They want it to be, you know, uh, Lake Tahoe, but so everyone is seeing it, and the folks who think they are semi, middle class, and they're trying to get over on it, but they're not. They're going to be homeless too, and they don't understand. They're starting to understand this. I've been talking about this for for like 15 years, but for the last 2 years, I've been talking about since the mob has moved in, and that's what the corporation is, a mob. They are a corporate mob. So anyway, so Sunday is my day to go visit all the churches and talk to everyone. And so I kind of come in 10 minutes after the guy is teaching the thing. And I kind of I walk up the ramp rather than steps. I can't walk up the steps because of my legs. And, you know, I come, you know, um, up the ramp, right? And then I come from the altar into the church, and the guy teaching has his little podium halfway because they don't have a lot of people coming to it. So I come in, I walk in behind him, and I have a little seat on the side where the light at that time at 10:30 in the morning shines right on me, like woo, right. And so I'm sitting there, and I listen and I listen, and I start praying, and I don't, butt into the teaching, you know, go anywhere with it. There's two other old guys who are, and they're both. One is like totally senile, doesn't even know what planet he's on. But the other guy, he's read the Bible his whole friggin' life, so he knows it real well, and he has he likes me. He's been my bud for the last 5 years, and so you know, he comes and sits on my deck, or we go and have breakfast at, there used to be loads of holler places. Now there's only one left, and that's going to probably go too. So anyway, so the teacher usually, because the teacher just, we have this like little catechism, and he just reads out of the catechism. He doesn't really teach, and he throws out his little opinions, right? Now these other two guys and the minister who's there, he will always, so what do you think, right? And they will say something, right? And as I'm praying, God's saying, okay, wait for it, wait for it, wait for it. And the other guy who takes me out to breakfast regularly, he always says something and he kind of gets stuck because he has dentures and he doesn't glue them in too well. And so he, blah, 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 and he turns to me and says, what do you think, Al? And then God says, okay, let it go. And so I let it go. So we were talking about Luke, and Luke's going on about Jesus, talking about look at the birds, they're not worrying about paying the rent, look at these guys, look at those guys, this is how you're supposed to be. And so I took it from there, and I was talking about how animals, they're not stupid. They're a lot of, like, the whales are all of those mammal fish are like the U.S. Navy has been recording what they call sea life because they got the nuclear subs down there all the time with their sonophones open, seeing if they can hear any enemy ships or submarines. And so they have recorded a ton of animal life. So in the computer, it can say, yeah, it's Larry the whale or Jimmy the dolphin or whatever. So they can ignore that and look for the submarine, right? So they have a database that's unbelievable. There's some scientists that have taken that database because it's not really top secret. It's just sea animals. They've taken it and dumped it into AI, and AI has taken it apart and found like the humpback whale. They have realized that the humpback whale has a larger vocabulary than humans, including all the different religions. Right? I mean, they have like 1,800 words for what krill is. The little green stuff just floating in the bottom of the ocean. And so it's like the Eskimos. They got like 50 words for snow. So don't eat the yellow snow. So I'm going on about all of this and how it fits in, and God is like just waiting for us to touch base, right? And I talk about all the things like the other day I was at I was helping collect. No, the other day I was helping a friend fix his barn, and he's not an old guy, but he's not a young guy, and he's his stuff all over the place. He's like it's a walking. He's going to fall into his chipper one day. So I just go up there, and his electrics are like deadly. So I kind of make sure the place doesn't burn down. He doesn't get electrocuted. I put everything on GFIs because he's basically doing stuff outside all the time with big long ratty extension cords, and I fix them. Anyway, so I'm there going around, and here's a lady, they found two cats, and when they were little kitties, I looked at them. I said, this one's a boy and this is a girl. You better get them fixed. Well, now they have 40 cats, right? Which ain't bad. They got a big farm. It's gotten rid of all the rats and voles and all that stuff. But dogs come and bark at the cats, right? Now, I've been teaching the cats what being a cat is, right? And how to, go after the dogs. I said, you got to do it as a crew. Can't one cat can't do it. But there's 40 of you. You go after that big bad dog, he will rule the day that he ever came up there, right? So anyway, these cats are ruling the roost. The dogs are like, "Arr, arr, arr." And so a pack of dogs came up to show those cats what it was the other day. And the wife got upset. Now she's a dog girl. She's not really a cat girl, right? But she's attached to those cats, right? And the cats love her and love her husband and love the pig and love grandma and love me, right? Anyway, so the dogs are out there. There's four of them at the cats, and the cats are going, okay, yeah, we kind of outnumber these guys, but they're awful big and nasty. So, first the woman screamed at him. Then the husband, said, get out of here. And the dogs just, ignored them, right? So I walked out there in the middle of the street, and the pig's on one side, and the 40 cats are behind me. Like, it's like straight out of West Side Story, right? And so I use my outside when I go, hey! And the dogs go, what? He's talking to my head. I said, you better get out of here. Go home. They turned around and ran away. And the cat said, yeah, you go on. You go on. And the pig already, was like going to eat the rest of the garbage. And, the old guy and his wife were like on the front door watching me do that. I said, how do you do that? I said, well, I had the cats at my back. The pig was ready to sit on him, right? And that's how God works. If you work with God, there's no problems. Every day I live on $400, like a millionaire. My whole life I have lived a very nice life without. And I've had loads of money in my life. When I was working for the corporate world from about 1988 till 2014. Between 06 and 2014, when I worked for the corporate desperate lawyers, I made just a tad under 100 G's for 11 weeks of work a year. Right? People, well, man, you should work every day. You'd be a millionaire. I said, I don't need to be a millionaire. I hang out with millionaires. They always buy me lunch. They always pay my bill at the hotel. They always take me to the massage parlor where what they call it, executive parlor, and you get a happy ending. And and I was talking to God back then. I said, so hey, God, I am really having a hedonistic life here. Is this sin? And God said, nah, you need to learn what this is. And he said, you're not really. He said, the biggest sin is when you take that lifestyle and call it God, when that's your icon, and that's what everyone who wants to buy a new car, who lusts after stuff, right? Now I have a ton of stuff. I still have a ton of stuff. I had 2 houses in Virginia. I mean, big houses. The school that John Boy's in, that's 10 acres, about 10,000. There are a couple of buildings, 10,000 acres. I mean, square feet in those buildings. If you put them all together, and it's a beautiful site. I mean, it's the hill. It was Cherokee's sanctuary. There were altars there. There are magical caves there that are this small, but you have to go into state to get into this gigantic space. Right? Does John do it? No, he did it once. I left. He threw me out, and I was gone about 2 weeks. And come back, come back. When I came back, he was like the happiest he ever was. Right? Because I feel so. I just walked up there and I sit in front of him. Right back in the late summer, early fall of 2016. Right? He bought the school in September, I think, of 2015. Anyway, so I had those two places. I actually had 7 places in Virginia because they just kept falling. I bought 7 houses in a little town called Vinton for 75 grand. Like 10 grand a house. And they were houses. And they were in pretty good shape. They weren't really, they were cinder block, factory worker houses. Factories are gone. Nobody was quite in them. It was that part of town was, pretty funky, methy, heroin, crime. The blue lights were always flashing every night. But it was right downtown. Downtown was right there. Now it was kind of boarded up. Nothing was going on, but I knew it was gonna. Things would change. So when I sold that house, and I rented it out to all these people who had jobs, but had a falling down, and I couldn't even rent anything because they didn't have any credit, so they didn't get, so nobody would rent. I rented to everybody who had had issues, right? And by having a house and they had a job, I said, you have, like, one lady came, knocked on my door at about 10:30 at night, and she was in her Cracker Barrel outfit, and I looked in there, and all her stuff was in the car with her kids. And she goes, I hear you have a house to rent. I said, yep. And I went in, I got a key. I said, let's go. Let's walk across the street, drive your car into that driveway over there. Went over there, opened up the door, turned on the lights, showed her the place. I said, okay. Well, it's $300, meaning the average rent, even in that crappy neighborhood, was $800 for a 2-bedroom apartment, right? And I gave her a 4-bedroom house with a dining room, kitchen, living room, and basement, and a backyard for $300. Because I bought all 7 of these houses for 75 down. I had no real anything, and the taxes were nothing. So I basically said, $300, first 4 months, not a problem. And so you got to get it to me. You can move your stuff in. Here's the key. But the utilities are in my name, and they're going to stay in my name until a year, and until you get a checking account, until So this lady for the first half year paid me in nickels, quarters, and dimes. And I charged her I said, no, 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 no. You need to go to the Kroger's and put it through the change machine and just at least bring me folding money. So, that's kind of, I did that. And I had those properties for a good 6 years. And everyone in those houses, I rented it to people like that lady who couldn't rent anything because she had no credit. She had, she fell off the wagon, blah, blah, blah. But she had a job and she was trying real hard. Everyone was trying real hard. So one guy, he was working, and they all were people who heard about this guy's got some houses. He's renting them to anybody. Knock, knock, knock. And I didn't rent them to anybody. I rented them people that I could look at them and see that they were good people. They just had a few missteps and they needed a break. And I was their break. Every one of those people stayed. They never, they were like good tenants. And within a year, they were putting the money straight into my bank account. So I never had to even think about it. And by that time, I was doing other stuff. I was working more in Florida. And so I had, a big house in Florida and a little fishing camp down in the Keys, right? So, I had about 15 buildings I sold everything pretty much. I kept the school, the deep green, and my fishing, my 2 places in Florida because my parents hadn't died yet. And then, and I kind of cashed in all my stock, right? And so anyway, I told my stockbroker to put it in gold. I said, not a company who said, no, I want it in the physical stuff. And he didn't do it. So I lost about 15% of all of that in the just changing of the world in '08. Right? I didn't lose everything, not like my dad. My dad and my mom lost 3/4 of their net worth in 1 week in '08. And then they died. They died that year. It was like they died. And my sister, who had power of attorney, I asked my dad, "So why don't you? I take care of you. I'm with you all the time. Why didn't you?" He goes, "Well, your sister is scared of me. I can make her do anything. You are logical. You always do the right thing, and you know, and I've already been involved with you, and I should have stuck with our business. I would have been a zillionaire if I had just listened to you. But and you don't even say, see, man, and that. I didn't even do that to him, right? And I just had a good, my last, 28 years with my parents, I just had a good time with them, right? And I had every conversation I ever wanted to ever have because I knew when they were dead, I didn't want any question about anything. For all my brothers and sisters, they have a gigantic hole in their life because they all worked for my parents. I didn't. I always had my own life. They worked for him, and they, got really, they had the war with the roses with my parents. Me, not so much. And my dad and I had a big company, and we were doing really great with what I was doing, and he got upset because no one even knew him, right? He wanted to be the king. He wanted everyone to kiss his ring. Me, I was doing all this stuff all over the community, and everyone knew me. And I was like in the middle of a collapse in 1986. The savings. I was making money, right? And my dad, our lawyer called us up and said, "Hey, you got to come in. Your father, I knew what it was. My dad was going to pull the plug because he did that to my brothers and sisters, right? So not a big problem because I knew it from the beginning when I started, like 4 years before, right? And as I was doing that, that's why I was doing stuff all over the place because I built my own thing off of the backbone of what we were doing, right? And it wasn't like I was taking money out of it, but just the wherewithal of doing all the stuff that we were doing. People going, whoa, I can trust this guy. This guy knows what he's doing. And I was involved in, the Stop Shoreham campaign, the No Nukes campaign, taking over abandoned buildings in New York City and putting homeless people in them, 500 families, you know. Now, I didn't do that all myself. My job and all of those things was to figure out who was the right person for the right little niche in that project, right? And how to get everyone to work together. That was pretty much what I did. And there were a few things that when in the Stop Shoreham campaign, I got the police, Nassau, Suffolk, and New York City police to back what we were doing because I took, Dr. Golub, or whatever the guy's name is from Brookhaven, the guy who's invented nuclear health physics. I took him to visit all the police departments, and he showed them photographs of the people in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, right? He was the guy who figured out what kills you, right? And all the police were, okay, if this Shoreham plant blows up, there's a million people to the east. There are no. It's an island. They're not getting off. There's only 3 highways. Long Island Expressway, Northern State, and 25A. That's like 18 lanes to get a million people off the island, and they all have to go by the exploding nuclear power plant. Where Long Island is its narrowest point, where Shoreham was. Anyway, um, that was, when I said, I'm going to make sure the cops are on. What do you, we can't involve the police. They're kind of, I said, no, you're a spy. No, 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 no. Police are just human beings. You get them to be human. They're nice friends to have. Like one time we were going to take over the plant. We weren't going to take over it, but we were like, it was like a theater piece, right? And we had about 15,000 people ready to go over the fence. And this is when, George H. and Ronald Reagan, and they put up big red line and put up big signs say, you cross this, the federal, nuclear blah 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 police are going to kill you. Well, we had Suffolk County SWAT team, right? 4 big black trucks with sharpshooters, and other guys all over the place. And that guy got, all right, if you shoot the kids, we're going to shoot you. And we have better aim than you morons. And so we did that to get some kind of media attention. You gotta be like, exciting. You got to be like OJ, right? And OJ was kind of happening around that time, I think. Or was OJ in the '90s? I'm not quite sure. But anyway, um, that's what we were doing. And that was my job. I did all that stuff. So that's kind of I stumbled into the Montauk problem. I was already part of the esoteric occult community, the Theosophical Society, the Thule Society, a number of entities that were in the UN. Kids, if you don't know that the US government is 100, it has nothing to do with Jesus Christ. Basically, our government, all those guys are Masons. You know, there's a gigantic portrait of George W. I'm not George. George W. George Washington, and he is like on the mountain that Jesus was supposed to rise up to heaven, and he's in his total, um, you know, Masonic look, and the light, the illuminated light is pouring down on him, and that's in the Capitol, right? And if you go to the Jefferson Monument, everything is Masonic, right? If you don't understand, look at our $1 bill. Why is there a pyramid with the Eye of Horus on there, right? The stuff is pretty straight up, right? And if you look at our economy, it is 100% Masonic, right? And all those politicians, instead of ever see the Captain America, Hail Hydra. Well, it's kind of Hail Masonic Lodge, right? And the world is running like that. And so I was telling stories about dogs, and there were 7 people watching. I start talking about our government being Masonic, it goes down to 1. So anyway, um, I was going to play stuff, So I record stuff from the radio um, onto my recorder over here, and that's old hat, right? I played every kind of John, other people, blah 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 blah. It's not a big deal, and but the big deal is you guys. What are you gonna do? What is your relationship with God? Go read Luke. You know, so why I go to the church and why I go to Bible studies in these churches is because they all have a different point of view, and yet it's the same book, and it gets me to read the Bible. I got a lot of time on my hands. I have no car. I have this thing every once in a while, this beater, but I don't really. And it's not like when I had my own car, where I would go visit John or go to Florida or go over here, meaning I can take this thing within 20-mile radius of place, close enough to where my friend can come and get me. Um, but I can't go any other place, and that's fine, right? Why would I? It's beautiful here, right? And right now is the time to appreciate it, because if these morons keep doing what they're doing, I mean, this one rich guy, he came and said, "Why did you cut all those trees down on your property?" I said, "Because they're going to fall down. I got these 2 places, the man cave and the deck, and I took all the trees out. 3 reasons. One, to get sunlight into the holler, because it was like going into you know, um, the swampy, deep forest of the place in Brazil, right, and the Amazon. And so I cut all the trees so the light would get in there and dry everything up and get rid of the insects. And then I put French drain so it can take the water away, because even though I'm on top of a mountain range, there's 4 mountains all around me, and they all go down into my holler. But my holler, I'm 1,800 feet up in the air, right? Now those mountains are 2,200 feet, so I'm 1,800 feet. So all that water kind of rushes down and goes through my property, but because I took all the trees down that would hold it, and they were all dead. I brought an arborist in. He said, and this is like 23 years ago when this happened, when I took those trees out. And the arborist says, all these trees are from the old forest. When there were oaks, there were maples, there were birches, all these gigantic hardwood trees. And now all the forests around here are poplars, because they're like weeds. They grow up real fast, and they really so all the trees that would be like where my holler was, that turned it to dark, the trees, those poplars couldn't grow. When I cut, you know, oh, a little less than an acre, three-quarters of an acre, I cleared out the center and did all the drainage and made paths. I was going to build a big fancy house, and I did build the deck, and I did have the man cave, but I was going to build like a 12,000 square foot gigantic mausoleum to put all my stuff in. And anyway, and I didn't do that, right? Because when I died in 2014, when I had my life, you know, you know, I can't, I kind of popped out, oh, where am I? I'm not in the Italian restaurant. I'm not in Tony Soprano land anymore. I'm where am I? Oh, it's the Hitler's Rifle Squad. The Catholic school I went to in first grade, where the nun murdered me. And the cafeteria was in the basement, and the ceiling was like 8 feet high. I mean, if you were claustrophobic, you couldn't stand being in that cafeteria. And it had a constant smell of rat poison, whatever garbage they were cooking in there for us, and that green stuff they throw on vomit. That was the right. And when I came, I'm sitting on one of these little benches in the cafeteria, and all these people pat me on the back, telling me what a great job I had done. And there were balloons everywhere, and it said "Welcome home." And I was looking around, and there was this like sheet cake that looked like a matzah, and it was chocolate. It was a chocolate matzah with this green slime icing, and it said "Welcome home" on it. Right, and everyone's patting me on the back. And my master came over, Ashake, and he kind of was giggling and smiling like he always does, and he said to me, "Well, you did a great job. No, you're doing a great, you've done." He put it in like, it's not over yet. It's like, "Oh, you're all finished." No, it's like, you've done a great job. And so I said, "What do you mean? You know, what are you talking about?" He goes, "Well, you can stay here, or I said, "I'm tired. I don't want to do anything anymore." He goes, "Well, you can do that, but you're going to stay here in this basement, and all you're going to look at is that chocolate matzah with the slime icing, and all you're going to smell is that. That's going to be your reality for eternity. Or you can go back. You've done 95% of what you agreed to do. You just got another five to keep going. You know, you've died already 7 times. You got another two to go. You might even have a kid, right? So, but there are a lot of people that you need to help." And I said, "Oh, okay." And that's why I do this, you know, YouTube. I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea to monetize, to maximize, to blah blah blah. When I first started off, there was this lady in Florida who, "Oh, you're a genius. You're great, blah, blah, blah. I will, make me the whatever you call that, where the person is the person running the show for you." And I said, "Sure, that sounds like a great idea." And so, but you got to explain to me what it is and how it's going to work and blah, blah, blah. So I was saying, "You do what you do, and I will just run everything, and I'll run it through me, and I'll give you a pittance." Right? And I said, and I don't like what you say, I will make sure it doesn't hit the airwaves. Anyway, so I said, I don't know. And then she got very nasty, and I've never heard another word from her. Right, so, which is how my life works. Like I have a new girlfriend, and she's great, and she loves me because I don't bother. I can't call her up, and when God wants her to talk to me, my phone works. She rings. Hey, we have a nice phone call. She knows I'm always here, or I'm not here, but I'm in the deep green. So she can just come and pick me up, and we go up and do fun stuff. And the other day she was going, some people are like, "So you're paying all the bills for Al?" And she goes, "Not really." She goes, "When we've seen you go out and you kind of, you know." She goes, "Well, yeah, well, And she goes, "It's amazing that I used to spend about $2,500 a month on buying stuff on Amazon that I didn't need. Now that I'm hanging out with this guy, he diverts me, and I spend about $400 on him instead of the 2,500 I used to spend on useless scrap." Right? So she goes, "He's saving me money." Instead of what, John, you cost me money, blah, 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 blah. I mean, when I was a shrinky boy, I used to get paid like $800 an hour to deal with guys like John. But now he's my bud, so I call him up sometimes. I have a number of our conversations. You've heard them. It's the same thing. Why should I play it to you? It's not. At some points, it can be funny and amusing, but overall, it's sad, right? And that's pretty much humanity. Overall, it's sad. Wow. So anyway, I'm that's so let's see, 40 minutes and 40 seconds. I love it when it happens. So what are people saying here? See, Martyred Artist, he's very succinct. He doesn't really say anything. John is watch your socks. Yep. Uh-huh. Jamie says, see, at least Jamie puts it in capital so I can read. Hi, elves. Good, bro. Yep, yep. Blessings from Ireland. Grace. So, basically, you thought the world was strange from 9/11 till now. This year is going to be whoa, 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 and it's all scripted. This is I could again. I played you a few times. This scholastic guy who I know I talked to so and so senator, right? Blah 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 blah. Big fucking deal. I went to this cocktail party. Blah 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 blah. Who cares? And he's constantly going on. I'm saying this is all scripted. The war in Ukraine scripted. The war in Darfur scripted. The war in the Strip scripted. You could see historically. From 1947, all one of the major things that turned the world like. I mean, it wasn't that already. This just tightened the screw, and that was the National Security Act of 1947, when we went from the War Department to the Defense Department. Obviously, the message that everything, like when you hear the government saying "no child left behind," that's meaning they're going to leave every child left behind. War on drugs, we're bringing more drugs in. All of the people on the southern border are there because what Ronald Reagan did with Iran Contra. Yeah, all these little countries that were doing pretty good. They had their own thing going on, and good old Mr. Rockefeller and Henry Kissinger went in there and basically assassinated all the people who were trying to do the right thing for the people and put in corrupt generals, and then they turned all their countries into failed states that let corporations just extract everything from them and then leave them as a Ecuador is a good example. Chile, Venezuela. These are all great examples of that. And where did all the instability come from? From the United States giving them un. You just you think we have a lot of guns in our country? They have dumped a ton of weapons in all those little countries, and all of those like in Ecuador. Where did those gangs come from? They came from America. We, these guys came from their little country because of Iran Contra, because we started all these civil wars all over that place, not just in Nicaragua. And Nick and the guy in the Nick, why he's still there? He was working for Henry Kissinger. It's so right in your face. This is what it is. But nobody, especially the scholastic world, oh, what do you do? It's got a crystal ball. It's going. Look at what's going on. So um, it's sad for the poor people, like the poor people in the Strip. It's sad. It's sad that Russians have killed almost 200,000 Ukrainians, and the Ukrainians have killed probably more Russians than they have. And the Ukrainians not even blowing stuff up in Russia. You know what I'm saying? So that war will go on friggin' forever, and it will go on just as it is until the script tells Vlad that he should try again to take all of Ukraine. And he'll do the same exact thing. Take the tanks down that highway towards Kiev, right? And basically, that military is sharp enough. They have folks, and they have enough of those anti-tank weapons to do the same thing over again and do it even worse, right? And by Vlad bringing those people into um, Ukraine, the Ukrainian army, about 20,000 will go into Russia and start blowing up all the logistic facilities in Russia and in the encapsulated 15% of Ukraine, and really mess things up for the Russians and blow up that bridge going to Crimea and all of that kind of stuff, right? And that's when Russia will nuke um, Crimea and Odessa and Poland, right? And that will only occur after Bibi nukes um, Rafah, the last city left in the strip, and the Houthis, or the guys up there in Lebanon, right? They're going to nuke those two places because the guys up there in Lebanon are basically, you know, well armed, well disciplined, a real military force, right? And what's the Hulu or whoever those guys are down in the strip? That was a military thing that happened. It wasn't some terrorism. It was a military thing, right? Anyway, flip the thing, and basically this is the end of Israel. And it's at the hand. You just have to read the Bible, read Lamentations. Read Jeremiah was a bullfrog. That guy lived 900 years. During the 900 years that Israel over and over and over again did exactly what they're doing in the strip, right? Going after someone weaker than they were, and then someone ate their lunch, and then they were, taken over and enslaved, but not really, because they weren't cleaning toilets. They were, why did the burning bush send Moses into Egypt to get the, you know, they weren't Israel yet. They were still the Hebrew nation, the tribes. Why? Because what happened was the Israelites, the Hebrew nations, had taken on, just like they did in Babylon, took on the cultural mores as a icon, right? False god. They did that 7 times, and Israel's doing it now. Their false god is their invincibility, right? And that they have the right. They are the Israel has to be that whole chunk of property. Bibi went into the UN a few weeks before this all happened, and he had a map, and Gaza was gone. Everything that was not quite Israel yet was Israel in his picture, including Lebanon, including parts of other countries, right? Everything that they had gotten in the 6 Day War, that's what they want again. And that's their false God. And so we're going to see all of this unfurl this year. Plus, we're having a presidential election, and this is the end of the illusion, because we have never had a democracy. We've never had freedom. We pretty much everyone. It didn't matter whether you're white or black. You were living in Jim Crow land. When the Irish came over, they were, it said no blacks, no dogs, no Irish. And the Italians, no blacks, no dogs, no Irish, no Italians. China. There's always been the immigrant who got the worst end of the stick. That is the mechanism of running democracy in America, and we have exported that to the rest of the freaking world. So that's what we're going up against, and we're going to have a minor nuclear war. There won't be a total exchange that where the planet is a burned out cinder, but it doesn't matter because we have all of that. The power elite is already off planet. They already. I don't know if you guys remember back in the 50s and 60s and early 70s, there were a lot of UFOs that they said it looked like a cigar, right? And what it was American submarines, because the submarine is designed to hold the vacuum, to go under the sea for 400 or 500 feet where the pressure is pretty amazing. So going out in space is no big deal, right? So they had anti-gravity. They stuck those little generators on the submarine, and zip, that submarine, from 1962 is flying around in outer space. and they got those suckers. They had warp drive. We're out there. We're out amongst the stars, and other cultures have endorsed us to be part of their, whatever, their union, their federation, because we're just badass dickheads, right? The other guys who are way older than us aren't as nuts when it comes to killing people. We are down for it. We got that reptile blood in us, that cold blooded, you don't give a fuck, And so all of that is going to come really. I mean, it already is. If you're not, so that's why I love talking to the scholastics and getting them, and they get so upset because they're so invested in their belief in whatever discipline that is a total joke. Science is a joke. There is no objectivity to science. When you really get into the macro level of what's going on, all the stuff that we call science is more like a religion, you know? A really hokey religion, right? And that's like, that's why they call Tech, Virginia Tech, the Hokies, because they're whatever they're teaching those poor kids is so hokey, it's ridiculous. Hokum. You know what hokum means? It's the stuff that comes out of the asshole of farm animals, along with bunkum. Bunkum, same thing. That's why that county in North Carolina, where Asheville is, called Buncombe County, because the guy was a congressman from there was so corrupt. He was the most corrupt politician in American friggin' history, and that's why that's bunk, man. That's bunk. This guy's name was Buncombe, right? Buncombe County. Anyway, so here we are, 51 minutes and 51 seconds, and it's a beautiful day. And every day, every second, every moment, that's all I live in. I'm not thinking about tomorrow. I'm not thinking about paying my bills because it's not a problem. God is taking care of everything. Whatever's going down is, I'm doing it as God's, slave. I am God's slave, period. More than servant. Servant is this guy who's got a little tray and brings cocktails to lots of different people, serves lots of people. Slave has one master, period. Now, I've had many teachers that I used to call master because they were really good. They were above being, I'm just a sensei. I'm just a teacher. I'm just a griot. I just tell stories. But my teachers, they were real masters. These were guys who could do stuff that was like, that's magic. You know, no, it was a higher level of science and technology. That's all it was. That's why I know the shit that people think is either not there or it's like, it's just a higher level of technology, right? And all of the stuff like Star Wars and Star Trek, those were all put out for us to see. So when it shows up, we will go, oh, that's just like Star Trek, right? So once things get, I mean, go watch the first episode of Next Generation, right? And it was something at Firepoint, right? And that's exactly the moment where we are right now. It's talking about what it was, right? And basically there is a unraveling of the global structure, right? Because it was just only put there, just like the global structure that was. How did England, this little teeny friggin' island that had no resources whatsoever, rule the world for 300 years? Why? Because they had a navy that could kick butt of any other. I mean, the Spanish made the greatest ships, had the greatest boats, but not the greatest guys sailing them, right? So the English used to, woo, swing themselves onto those boats from their little crappy boats and throw the Spanish overboard and take their Spanish boats. So it's like, hey, good, we got this boat. And and that's why, America had no big navy. How did we destroy at the time? Spain had one of the larger navies, had this big empire in the Pacific, and we kicked their butt in like less than a year in the Spanish American War, right? And that wasn't about Mexico. That was about the South Pacific and South and Central America. We had already had a war with Mexico. We already owned Mexico. You know, that NAFTA, right? What if you read NAFTA, you realize what it did was it structurally made Mexico, Canada, and the United States one frigging country. So all those morons who were coming from Mexico into America, they're just our cousins, they are actually, if you read NAFTA, they are kind of citizens of, right? And we need them. Why do we have such a hard problem where no one wants to work? Well, there's nobody here to work because our whole economy has always been based on immigrants to do the shitty jobs that nobody wants to do, right? And we're about to, unleash robots into that position. I mean, we already do on factories where in coal mines and assembly lines for cars, all the shitty jobs are done by robots. The welding, the painting, all the stuff that you'll die from, robots, right? Same, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, when coal had its biggest boom, the number of coal miners were going down. Now they were getting paid more, but it was really seriously automated. And the number of coal miners went down, 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 down to the point where the corporations said, we don't care if we, they understood once they were cutting from coal into seams that had cilia, right? Quartz. And and the people breathing in that cilia along with the core, black lung was going down, down, down. And then once they started going after coal in these places where the cilia was, it shot up. And instead of taking 20 years to get black lung, you were getting it in 3 and 4 years. So, I live here in Appalachia, and so I know a lot about that. I've been part of and working with a lot of those miners, and they're basically dead, right? The union that was there, there's nobody in it because they're dead. And it's not because the industry, they're still digging up coal, but it's all being done by basically robots, by machines, right? And, so coal was substituted by natural gas. And if we were smart, natural gas is the fuel we should use until all we have to do. Nikola Tesla invented in the 1890s zero point electric, meaning free electricity from the ground, the bias of the atmosphere to the ground. That's what Warden Cliffs was, and that's where they built a frigging Shoreham nuclear power plant right on the footprint of Tesla's laboratory and Warden Cliffs, right? And not only was it free electricity, Tesla could transmit that electricity anywhere in the frigging planet unlimited, right? And so that's when electric cars will work. When you forget the batteries, you just get in the car and drive away. And you don't even have to you don't have to plug it into your house. You don't have to, you know, get a charging station, just drive around in it. And that you will see that happen like that. Once we go to an economy where no one owns anything, you just hit an app on your phone and the box shows up, you get in and it takes you wherever you want. And you know, air travel is one of the singular most, polluting things because it flies at 30,000 feet up in the air. It's shooting crap out of engines. And that shit stays there, because it's not raining up there, right? So it's not getting washed out. When you have a coal factory here on the ground and the crap goes up about 5,000 feet, it gets washed out within 48 hours, right? It goes someplace, rain. Now, like you'll go near Asheville and Mount Mitchell. When I first started to camp around that neck of the woods in 1968, Mount Mitchell had big trees on it. Now it's a bold thing. And they took the pictures down in the Welcome Center because too many people said, where all trees go? And they didn't want to say, oh, it's, the paper mills, it's the power plants, they didn't want to talk about it, right? So it's all this stuff is right in front of you guys. Nobody wants to look at it. They want to talk about, the old crone or this or that. That's nice. She was a teacher of mine, right? Now she was, and I had a lot of, Asha K, that guy, he's still around, but he's in other body, he's, like I said, he has access to different technology, so because there are other dimensions. We are our little puttied, bags of water. We are just in this one little dimension, defined by height, breadth, you know, we have all these mechanisms up in our pineal gland, there are senses that we don't even know we have. Now, if you meditate, if you pray, if you or a slave to God. Bang, that stuff turns on like a rocket ship, right? And I've tried to teach you how to do it, but not many people are as soon as I say, oh, let's do a guided meditation, everyone, oh, that's kind of fun. And once we kind of go into it, everyone leaves. They want to go on TikTok. So that's fine. That's good. It's not a big deal. But that's why I haven't really, you know, done um, a thing because I keep saying pretty much the same thing over again. And, that's fine. Everyone has the right to do whatever the heck they want. It means nothing if you don't understand that. But Akasha K and my other teachers would say, just keep telling everyone the story. I said, well, no one listens. And they said, that's not your job, buddy. Your job is just to tell the story. So that's what I'm doing. I'm doing my job. I'm doing what makes God happy, what makes Jesus, it always kind of nudge me in the ribs, going, that's good, buddy. You're doing good. So it's, what time is it? Let's see. It's still sunny and I got things to do in the deep green. How much juice do I have? Not much. I'm getting towards the red line. So I'll talk to another 10 minutes. Anybody got any questions? There's 4 of you there. How about some more thumbs up? How about some more people subscribing? Hit that bell, do all that stuff. Let's see if we can get, past 1,000. Right. And if you want to throw something in my PayPal, I would love it. Love it, love it, love it, love it. Right. Because it doesn't make a big difference to me. I always have what I need, you know. I got so much. I got this magic, where the deck is. I got all kinds of stuff stuffed in it, and it's like imagine, oh man, I need a screwdriver. I just put my hand in the piles of stuff. Oh, there it is. Oh, I need a drill. Oh, there it is. Oh, I need this one. Oh, there it is. And it's the magic box. It's like having my own genie without having the trial of having a genie. Have any of you guys experienced a genie? I've experienced a few girlfriends who were, my little genie. I had a few genies in my life, and they were that. They were they were living in a bottle. My present girl, she's not genie, but and she is who she is, right? And she was telling me the other day. She goes, Al, you brought me back to where I was as a teenager. I'm now reading books I read when I was 14, right? And I'm now thinking about things I haven't thought about for the last 25 years, right? And yes, instead of thinking and painting and drawing and dancing and going out and having fun like I used to, I started my own business and now I have money to, waste on, 2,500 bucks worth of crap from Amazon. Now you come into my life and I don't do that. I spend 400 bucks on you. We go out and do fun things. It's not like I'm giving you 400 bucks. It's like we're sharing 400 bucks, right? And sometimes, we go to places where I know the people and it's like, your money's not good here, Al. And she likes that. It's like, whoa. So anyway, that's the kind of life you guys could have. Your life, you could have the best life of your life. You can't have my life. See, John Boy wants to have my life, right? Because I don't know, it's not that I don't know. Many people just, you know, get stuck and they can't work through and last week when we were talking about prayer, right? And everyone was talking about praying and blah blah blah. When I was sick, when I had cancer, I prayed, blah blah blah. Well, what were you praying before you had cancer? No. And I tried to explain to each group that having these catastrophes that are in our lives are actually a blessing. What are you talking about? They're terrible. When I was cancer, it's like to have cancer. I said, no, I do know what it's like to have cancer because I worked in a cancer ward. I had many friends who had AIDS, which is a kind of cancer. It's a disease you got, was uncurable, and you died, right? Relatively nastily. And no one, in the 70s and 80s, when I was involved in AIDS work, I had 50 friends because I was, you know, involved in the theater community in New York City. I was involved in the social community of poor people. These were all communities that AIDS hit them like, um, a ton of bricks. And I was working at John Hopkins, as a guy who I basically was, a hospital electrician, right? I was working, things like CAT scan and MRIs and other imaging stuff of that nature was coming online, and I was installing them, not fixing them per se. I knew I could, but I wasn't like certified. But I was certified to, I was a master electrician, so I had done a lot of interesting electrical work, and those instruments need a really specific kind of electricity. So I was working at John Hopkins. I was working at Rockefeller Institute. I was working at the big hospital up in Harlem, and I was working at St. Vincent's, right? And all of that, where putting imaging into those. And then I was working at other places that HMOs were coming online. Oh, we're going to be a corporation and we'll make everything more economical and it'll work better for people. And no, they just, So I did a lot of work on that. So I was around all of that in the 70s and 80s. And I had worked at, Fort Hamlet. I had my own practice of alternative medicine. I was a osteopath. I had my own practice down in Wall Street. And I could still be doing that today because I had it before there was any kind of licensing. And when the national crew said, we should license all this so then we can, get insurance and we'll make more money. I said, no, that'll be the end of what we do. So they put me on the board to work out the strategy and what had to do to get licensed, right? One reason why in massage and alternative medicine there is a little nook, a little niche for people who do laying treatments, right? They don't have to go through all the crap if you want to be a licensed massage therapist. You can be laying on a hand. You can be a faith healer, and you can still get your insurance money, right? And those guys do a better job than no, I'm not saying anything bad about anybody doing anything, but from my experience, that is one reason I left. I was like in charge at the Swedish Institute of Massage in New York City that had been there for 100 years. They made me the director of alternative medicine. I mean, alternative everything. Not just not just Chinese. I mean, everything. You name it, I was bringing in there. And that's when I had my practice. And I could still be, I could have like niched out a niche where, oh, Al doesn't need a license. He's already been doing it way before any of us who now have a license have a license. He's like the godfather. I could have been that. But it was boring because I had a really prosperous, I was making 5, 6 grand a week in 1978, 76, well, 76. Um, and because in 78, I was in Australia, 76, 75, 76. And I could still be doing that, right? And making more, right? But I didn't because God said, on to the next thing. I've had all these different skill sets, all these different careers, and a lot of people, why, and this, like I said, when I was working for the desperate lawyers who had 9-figure salaries and they were living from paycheck to paycheck. They were so overextended. It was ridiculous. Me, I got there, they only called me when they had painted themselves in a corner and they were going to get screwed. And I went in and worked, negotiated a peaceful settlement where they survived another day. So they pay me anything. So I only worked 11 weeks average for about 10 years and made almost, I kept it under 100 grand. I kept it under 90 grand. I was in a sweet zone tax wise, right? I had a good accountant. And you know, and living the life they lived, I didn't have to pay for it. I was with them. They liked me so much that after I did that project, they kept paying my tab at that 5-star hotel, as a consultant, and they take me out. That's why I died in a plate of spaghetti because I was a super duper mobster restaurant in Miami. I died in a plate of linguine. So that's why I tell you the stories to give you insight and give you a perspective and give you an ability to connect to God's unconditional love through Jesus's unconditional forgiveness. That's the only way this works, right? Now, people, so the Jews, the Muslims, every one of the Abrahamic religions, they're just like all the Christians. They don't want to say they are, right? They all kind of tip their hat at all the stuff, but they don't want to say they are, right? And the Bible talks about the Gentiles. Before Jesus was even born, they're talking about Messiah's going to come, and the Jews won't accept him as their Messiah. And God did this on purpose, because if the Jews had accepted Jesus as their Messiah, then within the construct of what is within the text, 3/4 of the human race is going to go to hell, right? So to limber up, get the Gentiles to go limbo, they had to have this go down, right? So, and that's why end times ain't coming anytime soon, because there are a whole bunch of things that have to happen that haven't quite, oh well, the Jews are in Israel, now it's going to happen any minute now, and that's all those pudding Christian guys who are supporting this, catastrophe. Um, because they're thinking, oh, end times, I'm going to be saved. I'm going to be one of the lucky ones. I'll get the lottery. No, it doesn't work that way. Sorry, there is no lottery. Heaven's right here. You know, that's why my whole life. I mean, when I lived in abandoned buildings for 20 years in New York City and in Paris and in London and Istanbul and in Gutenberg, they were the most beautiful places. Quiet, nobody was there. The neighbor, for 20 blocks around, there was nobody. I grew my own food. We had a great community. It was Ireland. The whole, before they joined the EU, before '88, Ireland was one gigantic big hippie den. It's like loads of fun. And so, any questions? Boop, boop, boop. Thanks for the blessings, Jamie. Been doing this now 1 hour, 12 minutes, and 36 seconds. So, and it's about 3:18. Oh, we're in the red zone. I need to get out. My whole contraption here hates it when I let the show die of the battery. So, okay, I'm gonna go. So I love you guys. I'll do it again, maybe tomorrow, maybe who knows. But I got I number one thing I said. So God, what do you want me to do today? That's what I do. So he said, yeah, you haven't really done one of these. Go do it. I said, okay. I tried to do it at this place. Didn't want to do it. Tried to do it at that. So I came here to my neighbors, and he's not really my neighbor, but the guy who lives closest to me that lets me drive up on his driveway to use his Wi-Fi. I mean, there are other people who live right next, and I've helped them do a ton of stuff. Oh, I can't let you be on my Wi-Fi. Okay, whatever. So more thumbs up. Send me some on the old PayPal, the dude awake 42 at Gmail. I love you guys. Talk to you later.